There's a good chance that this summer could end up being pretty rough. Even as early as March, Phoenix got hit with a heat wave where temperatures got up to like 100 degrees, and the official outlook for this summer is expected to be hotter than normal for most of the country. Aside from making any trip outside completely miserable, those temperatures also pose a real threat to the power grid. So in this video, I'm going to show y'all how to stay cool during a summer power outage, along with some things to avoid. There's one thing that we do almost every day that could turn your home into an oven, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Then towards the end, I'll tell you all about a $10 piece of gear that'll let you know when your house has devolved into a total death trap. But first, let's start out with your home. If you lose power, don't try to cool the entire house. Doing that's impossible if you don't have some sort of whole home power system. Pick one room. It could be an interior room, a downstairs bedroom, or even a hallway. Heat rises, so if you have a multi-story home, stay away from the upper levels. You want your power outage room to be low, covered with shade, like from a tree outside, and small enough for your fan or other cooling method to handle. Close it off, hang a blanket over the walkway if you don't have a door, and make that your sleeping area. But there's one thing that most of us do every day that would cause temperatures to spike during a summer power outage, and that's cooking indoors. Like, you may have a gas stove that still works when the power goes out, or you could be using a small butane stove. Either one of those can make your home much hotter than it needs to be. When I was in college, I lived in an older house that only had window units, and neither me or my roommate had enough money to pay a huge electric bill. So because of that, we tried to only run our AC at night. That meant that any time that we spent there during the day was basically like living in a storage shed, and the last thing that we wanted to do was use the stove. It was a small house, so it wasn't like the heat would just stay isolated to one area. So if you have to cook, it's way better to do it outside. But when you do that, you're still going to be stuck out in the heat right in front of another big heat source. So if you can get away with it, not cooking at all is a much better option. When I say that, I'm not saying don't eat. Instead, focus on foods that don't need to be cooked. To help with that, I put together a free guide that shows over 50 no-cook survival foods. They're things that you'll actually want to eat, and they'll fill you up. The guide's free for anyone who signs up for my emails, so be sure to do that using the link in the description below or the pinned comment. But cooking inside isn't the only way that people make their homes hotter than they need to. The backup lighting method that you use can have a big impact too. Candles, oil lamps, and other flame-based light sources also generate heat. It may not seem like one candle or lamp will affect things too much, but you'd be surprised how much heat they put off, especially in small areas. LED lighting is a much better option since it burns cool, and LED flashlights and lanterns are becoming so cheap nowadays that there's almost no excuse not to have at least a couple of small ones lying around the house. The cheapies may not be the brightest or most durable things out there, but they definitely beat heating up your house, or heaven forbid, torching the thing because you had a brain fart and knocked over a candle. Then one more thing that people do that jacks up the temperature inside of their home is taking hot showers. A lot of us have gas hot water heaters that continue to work during short blackouts, and some people are just creatures of habit. They do what they do. But that hot steam has to go somewhere, and as it does, it's going to heat up other areas of your house as well. But now that you know where you're staying and how not to make the situation worse, let's talk about how to keep your body cool. Most people will just like grab a battery operated fan, point it at themselves, and think that they're good to go. And while we should all have things like fans, they don't actually make the air around you any cooler. All they do is just move it around, and that's only helpful when the air's pulling sweat or water off of your skin. Fans basically work on the concept of evaporative cooling. So for this to actually work, you need wet skin plus moving air. Doing things like misting yourself with a spray bottle or putting on a damp cotton shirt or bandana and then sitting in front of the fan is gonna be a lot more effective. And one important thing to remember is that in very dry heat, like what's common out west in places like Arizona, a fan can actually work against you since it's just blowing hot air across your skin, kind of like a convection oven. And if you're already starting to get dehydrated to the point where you're not sweating anymore, then using a fan is probably going to end up doing more harm than good. Also, keep an eye on the people around you. If somebody starts to act confused, stops sweating, or seems a little bit more out of it than their normal quirky selves, then they could be dealing with heat stroke. And if that's the case, call 911. While you're waiting on them to get there, you can do things like place cold, wet cloths or ice on like their neck, armpits, and groin. And then there's also a trick that the military uses that most people have never heard of. I actually hadn't heard of it until I started doing research for this video. Basically, all you do is stick your hands and forearms in a cooler of cold water. And for this to work, the colder the better. The blood vessels in your forearms carry a lot of blood close to the surface, and cooling them brings your core temperature down a lot faster than just putting a rag on the back of your neck. Just make sure that the water is actually cold, because lukewarm or warm water isn't going to be helpful. It's also important to drink water before you get thirsty, because once you feel thirst, your body's already kind of running on a deficit. I've been doing that when I take walks during the day or early evening. I'll walk with a water bottle in my hand and I drink whenever I feel like I need it, and I feel a lot better at the end of the walk and also for the rest of the day. Cold water's best since it helps cool you down a little bit from the inside, but staying hydrated is the main thing. And if you're sweating for a while, your body's going to lose salt and other minerals too. Having some sort of electrolyte mix on hand can help with this. I've been using these liquid IV packets more here recently, and they do seem to help. If you don't have anything like that or Gatorade though, then eating something salty can help too. And then pace yourself. Avoid doing hard manual labor during the hardest part of the day. Save physically taxing activities for the early morning or after sundown. When it's really hot, find the coolest spot that you can, whether it's in your cool room or in a shady spot outside, and then just rest. Then there are some things that you can do to your home to make a summer power outage a little more bearable. First, start with your windows. Most people will block these from the inside, but shading windows from the outside is actually a lot more effective, because once sunlight comes through the glass, the heat's already kind of in your home, so it makes sense to block it before it ever gets in. You can use things like shade cloth, tarps, awnings, or even a reflective windshield cover to do this. Then timing is important too. When it's hotter outside than it is inside, keep everything closed up. That'll keep hot air outside. But when the temperature drops in the evening or early morning, open your windows. If you have a multi-story home, opening the higher windows will allow hot air to escape, while opening the windows on lower levels will help draw cool air in. Just be sure to close everything before temperatures go back up again. Most folks want to open windows in the afternoon when the house feels stuffy, but really all that does is just let more hot air in. But if you want to get ahead of things and you have some extra money, then you can do things like install solar control window film or get a better roof. Dark roofs can reach 150 degrees or more on a sunny afternoon, while a reflective roof or coating can stay more than 50 degrees cooler. And in a house with no AC, that actually can make a pretty big difference. Next up, we're going to talk about backup power. And with this, you have to be realistic. You're not going to run your central air conditioner off of a battery. I have a couple of larger power stations that have big enough inverters to handle that, but a central AC will burn through their capacity in just a couple hours, if even that. But if you have a big solar generator, you may be able to run like a small window unit for a little longer. I have one that pulls around 500 watts, and a 2 or 3 kilowatt hour system might be able to cool one bedroom down enough for you and your family to sleep in relative comfort, and then you just charge it up again during the day. My wife and I had to do something similar when our AC went out several years back. We still had power, so we stuck a window unit in our bedroom and just camped out in there for a few days until we got everything fixed. When it comes to choosing a power station, you have to be aware of how size affects capability. Small units like this Jackery 300 will charge your phone and power a lamp, but it's not going to have nearly enough juice to even start a window unit. Look at how many watts the devices that you want to use pull, and then base any purchasing decision on that. Also keep in mind that just because a power station's inverter can handle a particular appliance, that doesn't mean that it'll be able to run it for very long. But if you're running a gas generator, which can be better for powering larger, more power-hungry appliances like air conditioners, you do need to keep a few things in mind. First, it has to be run outside, at least 25 feet away from your home. Don't set it up in your garage, on the porch, or next to an open window. Fuel-based generators produce carbon monoxide, which can kill you before you even know that it's a problem. It's invisible, doesn't have any discernible odor, and it's one of the most common ways that people die during power outages. Keep it far away from your house, use a long extension cord that's rated for the load that you're running, and keep a battery-operated carbon monoxide detector inside near where everybody's staying. But if you don't have the budget for a generator or a power station, there are still things that you can do. A couple of battery-powered fans and the wet shirt trick from earlier can still be very helpful and effective. Before I got a generator, I installed a hook above our bed so that I can hang a tent fan right above us as we sleep, and also installed some wall anchors next to the bed so that I could hang up my Milwaukee fan. Then, when it comes to other supplies, a good cooler is definitely worth having on hand. It'll hold your food, ice, drinks, and can double as a tub for the forearm cooling trick that we talked about earlier. If you have the budget, then an electric cooler is a very good upgrade. I have a couple that have rechargeable batteries, which means that they can run for a while even when they're not connected to a power source. The EcoFlow Glacier can even be hooked up directly to solar panels, which is very nice. But when it comes to cheap hacks, one thing that you can do now is just freeze some water bottles. When the power goes out, you can use those to help keep your food cold for a little longer. And once they melt, then you can just drink them. You can also place them on your neck, wrist, or other cool down points. And you can do the same thing with washcloths too. If you still have running water, then soaking in your tub can help you stay cool as well. But one thing that you don't want to forget about is staying connected. Always keep at least one power bank charged so that you can keep your phone running. You can use that to keep an eye out on the weather or to check in with loved ones. Also keep in mind that your vehicle can be useful as well. You can turn it on in your driveway and sit in the AC for a few minutes, or use it to charge your phones and power banks. And of course, never run it in your garage because of carbon monoxide. Also, be sure to plan ahead when it comes to water. While most short power outages probably won't affect your water supply unless you live in something like a high rise, you're going to end up using a lot more water in a summer blackout than what you would at other times of the year. You'll be using it for drinking, wetting down shirts, misting yourself, and wiping people down. So don't plan on just having a few gallons. Store a lot more because running out of water can be very dangerous in hot temperatures. Now, back at the beginning of the video, I mentioned a $10 piece of gear that would be very helpful during a summer power outage. And all it is a simple battery-powered thermometer. This particular one can show you the temperature and humidity for the room that you're in. And having something like this is important because after you've been sitting in the heat for hours on end, then your judgment may not be the best. A thermometer will show you exactly how hot it is, and it'll help you decide whether or not you need to stay or go. The bottom line is that dangerous situations are not the time to try to prove how tough you are. If the house has devolved into a total death trap, you need to get out. Go see a movie or shelter for a few hours at a coffee shop. Order the cheapest stinking thing on the menu and act like you're working. Then if you have to, stay with a friend or relative who lives in your area that still has power. Most of these summer power outages aren't like regionally apocalyptic, so you shouldn't have to go too far to get some relief. And if you have pets, take them with you too. Also establish red lines ahead of time so when they happen, you just do what needs to be done. You can leave without even having to think too much about it. Also, don't forget to check on people who can't look out for themselves. That could be people like older family members, younger kids, folks with health conditions, and also neighbors. If someone's very vulnerable, check on them in person. If you call or text and they don't answer, they could be keeling over while you're waiting on them to call you back. But also keep in mind that most of what we've talked about in this video doesn't have to be expensive, especially when it comes to things like battery-operated fans or backup lighting. So if you want to see the best prepper and survival items at Dollar Tree, then click here. Or if you want to see the best prepper and survival items at Harbor Freight, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.